This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Tiny at Obsessive Tiny on Twitter.
And this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Hello, and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a weekly movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show each episode. You can find back episodes at ovpodcast.com, and also check out the blog at obsessiveviewer.com, where I'm in the midst of posting my Marvel Cinematic Universe review, and I have a Jurassic World written review that just went up a couple days ago. The links to that's going to be in the show notes here. And then also come see us at Indie PopCon June 26th to the 28th. We'll be recording throughout the weekend, giving away DVDs at the booth, and just, having a good time. Tickets are available at indiepopcon.com. And our guest today, we have a guest. It's Matt Quiett. Hey, Matt.
Hey, guys. Wait, so let's back up.
Yes.
You're giving away DVDs. How do I win these?
Yeah, you're kind of putting me on the spot here because we haven't really gone through the actual how we're going to do it. But basically, what happened is I moved, and my apartment is fairly small. So I have I had two big DVD cases that I held all my DVDs in. So as I was packing and everything, I kind of picked apart the ones that are redundant, the ones I have other copies of, and the ones that I don't really want anymore, the kind of buyer's remorse ones. So I have two big crates of DVDs, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to give some of these away at PopCon.
Yeah.
Nice.
The best way to win them, a guaranteed way, is a sexual favor.
So
yeah.
If I show you my tits.
Yes.
Exactly.
It's like Mardi Gras on beads, but with DVDs.
If you make out with Shirley, very physically and passionately at the table.
In front of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
These are all things I can totally do.
Right. So, Matt, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? You're going to be at PopCon also, and I'm going to be on one of your panels.
Yes.
Is that confirmed yet?
They're not my panels necessarily.
Okay.
I'm paneled by association, I guess.
Okay. One of your network's panels.
Yeah. So we're going to be at booth 546 at Indie PopCon. That is nowhere near Podcast Alley. We have been exiled and shunned. Actually, due to a dumb snafu on my part, we didn't pay till way late, and we were lucky to get a booth at all. So we'll wait from you over on the exiled island where no one wants to talk to us. But that's okay. We're going to be there. We're going to be giving out. We're going to be signing people up for their chance to win some board games. We're going to be showing off our new recording equipment because we got new recording equipment. And it's going to be awesome.
Nice.
We're going to be doing something else. We're going to be handing out flyers and just generally having a good time. Stop by the booth and don't watch me make out passionately with Shirley, because that's the Obsessive Viewers booth, and that will keep you away from their booth.
Exactly, which you can find our booth at booth 637, by the way.
And we're in Podcast Alley, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. You guys were smart and paid on time or early.
Oh, we paid last year at last year's PopCon. We were one of the first ones to buy a booth.
Yeah.
So we do some podcasting a little bit. I've gotten a little fast and loose with my rules on no more podcasts. As of I guess this will be released in a couple of days. So as of 3 days ago, we just launched our 5th podcast. Our 6th podcast will officially launch tomorrow morning when I edit episode 0 and put it up.
Nice.
Our 5th podcast is Binging with Brian and Jeff. They watch all streaming shows, or all shows that are only streaming, and just talk about them.
I actually listened to the first episode today.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
On iTunes to say we accept this.
Right. It's not on iTunes as of this recording, but I went to you shared a link on Nerds Domain Facebook. I'll put the link in the show notes. But yeah, it was fun. I really like the cover art too. It's really awesome.
I would say her full name, we'll just call her Beth because her last name is Polish, and I'm not sure I'll do anything to butcher it. She was wonderful to work with. I had nothing but a great time getting her to do art, and it was really quick, and I was very, very happy and appreciative. She took exactly what I gave her, and made it better, way better. So,
Nice.
yeah, very happy with what she's done.
Nice.
And then our podcast that launches tomorrow that we just came up with last week is going to be called The Esoteric Order of the Yellow King.
Okay.
It's going to be True Detective. So we're going to watch True Detective and immediately record. And then on the, right after the season ends, we're going to start reading, novellas and short stories from the Cthulhu Lovecraft mythos.
Nice.
Very
section.
nice.
So we're going to go from once a week to once a month with those, so we have time to read. And then about 6 months from now, we're going to start season 1. Shirley and I have already watched it. We're going to watch it again and then record every week as though, we're coming out new again.
Right.
And then get back into mythos stories and kind of flip back and forth on those.
I would love to be a guest on that because I actually read The King in Yellow.
Yeah, Shirley's reading some of it now, and she's been very happy with it. So
yeah, cool.
Nice.
I'd be happy to have you guys on.
Cool.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's all very exciting.
Yeah. So, damn, you've got a lot of stuff going on, and then.
We have a 7th podcast coming out in September, and then some other stuff. Maybe an 8th podcast before the end of the year.
Holy
we're
crap.
crazy.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
That's impressive. I've been toying with a spin-off or not spin-off podcast, but like kind of a personal podcast of my own, like a secondary podcast, but I'm like, I don't have the time. I don't know. I've got like it all mapped out and everything, but I just haven't pulled the trigger on it, so maybe that'll happen in the future, but
I find the easiest way to start a new podcast is to not edit anything. If you tell your guest, hey, we're not editing this stuff, so just be on top of the game of your game, it goes wonderfully.
That feels like too much pressure on for me. I am too controlling for that. So tell us where we can find you online and all that.
Go over to nerdsdom.com and we read all kinds of reviews. So books, movies, podcasts, games, and apps. TV's also in there, come somewhere. I also just started a new blog called, this is so terrible, Quietly Nerdy, over at Southgate Media Group. They have blogs over there, and I was invited to come write for them.
Nice.
They're our network, and they're awesome. There's tons of podcasts there. You can find 4 of our podcasts, because I need to update the page now that I'm thinking about it. 4 of our podcasts, and soon to be the 5th and 6th one, listed over at nerdsdom.com/nerdcasts. And that'll take you to the RSS feeds and the web pages for all those. And you can listen to all those there. And then we're on Facebook at Nerdsdomain, or I'm at Quiet, but that's with 2 T's. And on Facebook.com/Nerdsdomain.
Nice.
So, yeah, we're a little bit everywhere.
Awesome. Oh, yeah.
We have all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for making me do so much work in editing, because I'm going to have to put all the links in the show notes. But for our listeners, you can find the links in the show notes. Today we're talking about Jurassic World. And before we get into that discussion, I want to bring up briefly some news that broke today. As of this recording, we're recording on Monday, the 15th of June. And it was just announced that Halloween is going to get a reboot. Again, it's going to be called Halloween Returns, and I can't remember the director's name, but the guy that directed The Collector and the writers from the kind of middle of the Saw series, they're going to be handling it. And as a franchise, we did a franchise review of the Halloween franchise, and this was news that was broke to us by Mike in our pod chat, and he's excited about it because he loves the Halloween series, and I'm cautiously optimistic because I was not a fan of the Rob Zombie movies at all. And it's one thing that really intrigued me about it was that the premise, the setup for it is that Michael Myers is on death row and about to be executed, and some teenagers sneak in to view the execution or something, but he breaks free and escapes, and now they're targets or something. I'm not sure. I haven't done the proper research, but it sounds interesting. And the franchise as a whole, I like less of them than I don't like, if that makes sense. So I don't like most of the entries in the franchise, but it's a franchise that could have an interesting revival if done correctly and without Rob Zombie's involvement. What do you guys think about this news?
Yeah. I'll check it out.
Nice.
I haven't looked at it much because I just dropped today and I haven't really had time to look at it. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for more Halloween.
Yeah. Matt, how about you?
Yeah, as a rule of thumb, I skip horror movies.
Interesting.
For a couple of reasons, and the number one reason is I do have terrible nightmares.
Oh wow!
I had a very vivid nightmare without any kind of. We talked about watching scary movies, and I had a very vivid nightmare about a ghost stealing my underwear. And as dumb as it sounds, I woke up screaming. So,
oh wow!
Yeah, so that's just talking about horror movies. Also, the horror movie I remember watching is the horror movie that makes me afraid of clowns. So I can't go anywhere near a lot of that stuff. Yeah. My imagination takes it and runs with it. But just like Friday the 13th, and other horror franchises, all other older horror franchises, Saw is its own weird thing.
Yeah.
There's a storied history, and even the movies that are bad, like there's so much around them that goes on. I like seeing that they're going to try and do it well. I don't know what Rob Zombie's were like, although I have found that I don't like a lot of things that Rob Zombie does, and I don't know that he is the filmmaker that he could be because he's just trying to go for wow factor too much. I think he has some skill. He just needs to tweak it.
I definitely agree with you there.
So I don't know. I won't watch it, but it's exciting.
Nice. Okay, cool. I did not know that about you. That's interesting. Yeah. So that's Halloween Returns, courtesy of Mike, our former our co-host on sabbatical. Yeah, that'll be how we refer to him. Nice. Okay, so anyway, let's get into our discussion of Jurassic World. And Matt, the reason that we've asked you on the podcast for this particular episode is that last year you invited us to a screening of Jurassic Park for your birthday, actually. And we went and we were on your podcast. When again, links in the show notes. We did a review in the lobby of the theater of Jurassic Park. I felt that it would be fitting to have you back on have you on the podcast to discuss this movie. So
yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I've been looking forward to Jurassic World since about the day they announced it.
Yeah, nice. So to get it kicked off, let's all kind of just do like a little brief, give our overall thoughts on the movie, and then we can get into a deeper dissection of our thoughts on it. And if you guys don't mind, I'll go ahead and go first.
Please.
Okay, so Jurassic Park is a movie that I adore. It's one of the first movies I remember seeing in the theater, and I connected to it on a deep level as a kid, and that fondness. There's a timeless quality to the movie, and so I was looking forward to Jurassic World because it's disregarding the sequels. It's a sequel to the original movie, and it seemed like it would be, this franchise is laid dormant enough that it would be ripe for a proper resurgence. And my overall feelings on Jurassic World is that it was disappointing, in that the thrills and the action sequences were very solid. They were the strong points of the movie, but none of the characters really resonated with me, and none of the characterizations of them did either. And they put characters in places that just felt really hackneyed for me, and it failed to connect to me on a character level and on a the way that I would characterize it is that the movie has the thrills of Jurassic Park, but lacks the heart and the timelessness of it. Yeah. So, Tiny, what do you think?
Interesting. I did enjoy it, just for its fun factors. It's kind of hard to view this movie objectively because it's the fourth installment of a franchise, even though it has a bit of a reboot or a shot in the arm kind of aspect to it. Mm-hmm. Because at a certain point, what can you really do with the franchise? And I think with what's already been established in the franchise, I think they did okay. But at the same time, I really echo a lot of what you said. I mean, the characterization was not there at all. So many of the characters just fell flat, or they were just very incomplete. The movie was fairly bloated, like a lot of movies tend to be anymore. I think the movie's really just this is really just a symptom of, you know, when they try to reboot these franchises like this or make a fourth installment of something, it's like you have to cram so many things into it because people have been desensitized to all the majesty and the fun stuff that was in the first 1 or 2 or 3 or 8 movies. And so you have to up the ante, and when you do that, it just becomes bloated and things fall by the wayside, and it's unfortunate. And I think this movie fell victim to that, unfortunately.
Interesting. Matt, how about you?
So I went into this movie and I allowed my nostalgia goggles to fall over my face. While I watched it, I enjoyed every bit of it. There wasn't a thing that I didn't go, that's pretty awesome. Having left the movie theater, I feel like that guy that was in the commercials for what I'm pretty sure was Frosted Mini Wheats, where one side is the kid and the other side is the adult. And the adult in me realizes that Jurassic World is not a bad movie. However, it is not Jurassic Park, and it will never be able to be Jurassic Park because at no point did my heart swell. At no point did the music grip me and pull me in. And at no point did I actually fear for anyone. I knew exactly who was going to die. I knew exactly who was going to live. And I was okay with walking along like that. Mm-hmm. It was clear when the villains were going to escape, and it was clear when other villains were going to die a horrible death. Mm-hmm. And all of them deserved exactly what they got. And it was, I don't know. I'm not disappointed with the movie from the fun factor. It was fun. But I am disappointed with the script. Mm-hmm. I'm a little disappointed with some of the acting. Vincent D'Onofrio's character was a little too much evil, maniacal laughter, hand-wringing for me. Chris Pratt was great, but he didn't put a lot of seriousness into that role. He just had fun. And to a point, I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. And Bryce Dallas Howard, they cast as a villain, and a really, I forget what your rating is on this, but I'm just going to go with it, a really bitchy villain at that. Mm-hmm. And they made a turn that, yes, while it made sense, didn't feel right for the character at the time. I just don't know. Like, you can't feel good about genetically, and spoilers here, sorry, but you can't feel good about genetically engineering the next epitome of dinosaurs. Mm-hmm. And not realize that something's going to go bad. Like, you can't do that. I don't know. Yeah, part of me is just very happy with the movie, and I was excited to see it. The rest of me is not. So, I'm a little conflicted.
Interesting. You mentioned the script, and Tiny, you mentioned that when you have a franchise, you need to keep upping the ante, and the script for this movie was really sloppy in its delivery of a kind of meta theme message kind of thing, where like a big part of the movie is that the attendance is failing in the park, or there's a downturn, and that's why they need to genetically engineer this dinosaur, which it's contradicted by the faces of all the kids and everything and all the shots in any case, but it's also a very thinly veiled like criticism or commentary on blockbuster filmmaking, and it felt disingenuous to the movie that this was a sequel of. Like, Jurassic Park was out of this world, mind blowing, and it was something that really broke ground in terms of blockbusters, and then it felt like this movie was trying to just up the scale of that, and without thinking about what made that movie so great, and that felt really Oh, go ahead.
The script contradicts itself. They're complaining about attendees, and this one really stuck with me. Even my kids' side saw this one. They're complaining about attendees. They had 20,000 people there.
Yeah,
they were full. This wasn't like a slow day at Kings Island here.
Yeah.
They were packed full the whole time.
Right.
And you know what? Disney World doesn't get old and people quit going when they don't reveal a new ride. It's Disney World. It's the majesty of the place.
Right.
Yeah.
Jurassic World had that same thing. They were just it made the guy at the head of the company seem more greedy, and it made Dallas Bryce Howard's character seem the same way. Like you don't need that money. You don't have to push for this. Just make a good park. And I don't know. The script didn't seem consistent, even with itself.
It really didn't. And there was like that whole thing about how, no one wants to see dinosaurs anymore. It's like, okay, first of all, that's just complete BS.
That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absolutely, and like cut to shots of the kids screaming about how, like, going around like all excited and everything. It felt so clunky.
Yeah.
And yeah, Tiny, what?
Yeah, well, and I mentioned part of that it has to keep upping the ante, and it's kind of funny they make this statement or this commentary in the movie about how it's not always a good thing to add more teeth and for bigger and crazier and whatever. It's not always a good thing, and it's kind of like, well, maybe you should kind of take your own advice in that respect, because this movie was like, well, that's what they did. They genetically modified and created this amalgamation of all kinds of crazy things from dinosaurs, and it was just too much for one dinosaur to have. And also the movie itself was like, I remember when I was reading reviews, like the early reviews before it actually hit theaters, the critics who got to see it early, they were saying, someone referred to it as dino overload. And I was like, that's kind of fitting. I won't go into spoilers, but there's so many breeds of, or I don't know if that's a proper term, of dinosaurs, and there's just so many of them. And like the way that the climax just features a ton of dinosaurs, it's just kind of crazy. It all just kind of blended together, and it kind of takes away some of the effect. They tried and pretty aptly failed to do like a slow reveal of the new dinosaur they created.
I noticed that.
Because I remember in Jurassic Park, the first one, we don't really see the T-Rex in full until like halfway through the movie.
It's like at the exact halfway point.
Right, right. And that movie, like the tension that's built in that first half is just phenomenal in Jurassic Park. And this doesn't really have that tension build in it. It's just kind of, and again, I don't know if you can really do that with a fourth installment of Jurassic in the Jurassic franchise, especially with no returning characters. Mm-hmm. That's hard to do. I don't know. I think they just should have planned the movie out a little bit better. And Matt Quiett, you mentioned the Vincent D'Onofrio's character. He was kind of one of the top guys at InGen, who's the evil corporation in this movie. That entire storyline should have not been in this movie.
It was ridiculous.
It was so bloated. That time, the time they devoted to that storyline should have been used to develop the characters, especially Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard.
That's exactly what I said in my review.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they did not let Chris Pratt be Chris Pratt at all. I mean, barely. Yeah. He has one or two fun, like jabby lines that were really good and funny, and a nice fresh breath of fresh air. But there should have been about 8 or 9 of them, if not more, of those moments. And they really should have let him off his leash and let him be funny, I think. Mm-hmm. And that was a failure, in my opinion, anyways.
Well, and I love Vincent D'Onofrio.
Oh, me too.
But he's exceptionally underused here for a cookie cutter villain that just doesn't need to be there. I mean, you're absolutely right. Yeah. He doesn't. I didn't even think about taking his storyline out, but if you do that, it streamlines the movie a little bit. It's not another hump, another climax for no reason. It's just, oh well, let's move on. So I don't know.
I kind of liked the idea, or what they did, where they sort of had like 2 leads. They kind of had Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard were kind of both leads in the movie, which you don't see very often. You usually have just the one person. And I think the most complete character was Bryce Dallas Howard, because she's the only one who really went through any kind of change or anything. I mean, you could make an argument for Chris Pratt, but I don't know. They just kind of they limited his character a lot, and she really. She took like all the development on as far as character arcs go, because she really there's a funny line at one point where the two kids say your boyfriend's a badass in reference to Chris Pratt, and it's a great line. I love that, but it's kind of like by the end of the movie she's pretty much a badass too. I don't want to spoil it, but what she does is awesome.
Well, it felt like they with Chris Pratt. It's like okay, they're like okay, we've got this guy he's like hot shit right now in terms of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And it felt like they realized there were script problems, so they put an emphasis on just how badass we can make Chris Pratt, and how Indiana Jones we can make Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where like the kids were like instantly like all in love with him and all crazy and everything. And like they're supposed to echo the audience like, oh, he's such a badass, he's so cool. And it's like, okay, you're kind of trying to use Chris Pratt's charisma and star appeal and everything to kind of mask these glaring problems in the script and the characterization, and it just I didn't fall for it. And like, can we talk about the kids for a moment here?
Yeah.
So they. One of the kids is the kid from Iron Man 3, and I think they both did a decent job in terms of acting, but the script was just a mess for them. Like in terms of just plotting out their arcs. Like there's, it's clear in the beginning, like that there's a disconnect between them because they're probably because of age. There's a gap in their age and everything. So like the older kid is more interested in looking at girls than he is at dinosaurs, and the other kid is all like super knowledgeable about dinosaurs. And then so you kind of get the sense like, okay, well maybe this is supposed to be like, okay, they're growing closer together because they're far apart because of their age. But then about half an hour into the movie, it switches to like, oh, I think our parents are getting divorced.
Yeah.
And then, that scene where they introduce that, it makes sense. It made a couple of lines early in the movie a little more clear, but that whole arc, that whole subplot was just so superfluous, and I didn't care. The parents weren't at the park, and I didn't care if they were getting divorced or not.
Yeah.
And the movie didn't either, because spoiler alert, that never gets resolved at all.
Nope, not so much.
And I'm like, just stick with the whole age thing. I don't know, just pick something.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Can we talk about character development just a brief bit longer?
Yeah, please.
Because I really feel like there was a character that had a good arc and that fully realized from good to bad back to good. And that was the Beta Raptor, Blue. And I know it sounds ridiculous, and it really is. But if you look, that is it's the only character in the storyline that you see a full arc on.
It's true.
It has 0 lines.
That just blew my mind. That's really true.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt more resolved with that one character than I did with anything else going on in the movie, including the big bad dinosaur. Like, we all knew it was gonna die. What?
Oh yeah.
Take over the freaking island? Whatever. Like, but that there were surprises from that raptor that I was like, all right, I'm in with this raptor, and I already loved raptors just like every other freaking kid that ever saw Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
But this raptor had character and had an arc and had people that or had other raptors that it cared about and lost them or whatever. And I don't know. It felt like that was the only character they wrote well for. And I don't know if it's because they didn't have to put words in its mouth or what.
Wow.
That's a good point.
I agree. It was something that was the raptors like I remember when the trailers came out, a lot of people were complaining because it seemed a little silly for, there to be a raptor trainer and how they're going to have a big battle with the other dinosaurs and they're going to, Chris Pratt's going to lead the way. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about spoilers, but I didn't have a problem with that, per se. Like, I thought that was handled pretty well. It was just, I guess I can say my piece about Vincent D'Onofrio, but I agree with you guys. He was really just useless, and he was I like him as an actor too, but it was just, every character in this movie, every arc in this movie should have been refined.
Yeah.
And yeah.
The whole thing needed a lot of trimming.
Yeah.
Trim the fat.
Yeah. What did you guys think of the setting, the park, how the park was shown? Because one of my big, when I talked about the trailer to people, like to friends and everything, and they were complaining about, they're genetically modifying dinosaurs and all that stuff. And I was just like, oh, okay, I can look past that, but I mean, that might be good, that might be bad, but I mean, look at how awesome it looks that the park is open. Like that is something that is so, you've never seen that in a Jurassic Park movie, and it's why I wanted to see it opening weekend. So what did you guys think of the actual depiction of the park?
I thought it was actually pretty cool too. That was kind of a highlight of it. I think it sort of stuck to the mythos of the Jurassic Park franchise, because they even mentioned the line that has a spare no expense feel to it, and it really does, because I mean they built this whole aviarium where there are what I assume are pterodactyls that are in there and stuff like that, and they built these really nice looking high rise condos where people can come and stay, and it has a Disney World feel to it. That was all just really impressive, and I thought it was in keeping with John Hammond's original vision. Having said that, I think another kind of useless character was the Indian guy who was the new owner or whatever.
Yeah.
Board of the director of the board, or I don't know what his title was, but
he was John Hammond archetype character.
But just
number one,
just could not even come close to holding up to Richard Attenborough. I mean,
who could really?
That's true, but I would have rather just not had the character in the movie, or I don't know. I thought he was silly,
and that's another unfulfilling character arc too. I mean,
but the park was cool.
Yeah, I liked the park. I liked the control room and the way they handled things, and it was clear that they had systems already in place and they were doing things, and I really liked all that. It was beautiful, but then there's this huge chunk of the island that's restricted, and I get that, and like they have these secret dinosaurs up there, but that's like, do we really need to do that again? Like, do we really need to have? I don't know. The parts of it that were great were awesome. The dinosaur in the water, that was great. Splash, whoopity doo. Like, I was impressed by that. But at the same time, I saw that was going to lead into something else later. It was clear, and it did twice. There was no point where I felt, again, the majesty that I felt in Jurassic Park. When you see the brontosauruses for the first time, John Williams does a great job of pulling you into that scene, making you feel what the other people in that scene are feeling, and it makes it important. There was not a single scene like that here.
Right.
The music was not done by John Williams. I think if you notice that I don't know who did the music, but it was inspired by. Like, there was nothing here that made me go, look at the majesty of this thing. It was, look, there's a thing, now let's show you all the great parts about it, and none of it really was great. A lot of it was kind of cool, but nothing really just felt wonderful. But that said, if they open Jurassic World tomorrow, I will be buying a ticket.
I think I would too, but the actual depiction of the park for me was, I love the scope. I love how they showed the park in full operational. That was great wish fulfillment. That dates back to 1993 when I saw the first one, because I remember thinking, like, what would it be like if there was like an actual park that was open. And so that just satisfied that for me. But like you said, Matt, it breaks my heart to say that the music did nothing for me, because the composer of the score is actually Michael Giacchino, who did all the music for Lost, the Star Trek movies, or J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies, and Super 8. And like, he's far and away one of my favorite film composers working today. And I didn't even know that he did the music until I heard about it on a podcast, and like, nothing about it stuck out to me at all. And that just, it's so disappointing to me that they got someone of such a high caliber in my eyes for this movie that could have been, if between the shots of the park in operation pre-disaster, and if they would have gotten a more grandiose score, I feel like that would have really captured something in me. But since it didn't, it was just like okay, like Tiny, like you said, it was dinosaur overload. Like, do you guys know offhand how much of Jurassic Park, and I haven't confirmed this, but how much of Jurassic Park is dinosaur footage?
I don't.
I believe it's like something like 14 minutes.
Really?
Yeah, it's not as much as I remember.
Yeah, and it's less is more. Like in the original one, one of my biggest gripes, I thought that the actual thrilling, like chasing and hunting and everything in this movie was solid, but there is a very, very noticeable absence of low-key, suspenseful breaks in the action. Like, there's no equivalent of the raptors in the kitchen with the kids scene in the first one.
Right.
And that level of tension helped make the original so great, and it just wasn't here. The closest we get is the first scene with the Indominus Rex, where Chris Pratt is hiding from it, and that's kind of echoing it's paying homage to the T-Rex in the first one, but it's also like been there, done that, and it was kind of frustrating. So, okay, how do you guys feel about going into spoilers here in a second?
Sure.
So
I'm all for it. Yeah.
Okay, so that'll basically conclude our spoiler-free discussion of Jurassic World. Do you guys want to give a roundtable about just reinforcing your overall thoughts on it? And will you guys buy this? So
okay, I'm not going to buy it, but I don't buy very much anymore. I really did have a good time with it. I thought it was still pretty fun. Even though it was dino overload, some of that overload was pretty cool. Like Matt mentioned the aquatic dinosaur. I can't remember what it's called.
Me neither.
The giant alligator thing, I guess. That and the Indominus Rex, as ridiculous as it was kind of cool at times, especially with the camouflage and all that stuff. It was cool. But at the same time, they could have scaled things back significantly and used the less is more thing, like you said, Matt. I totally agree with that. But I'd probably give it like a 6 out of 10, something like that. It was still enjoyable. I didn't regret paying a matinee price to see it. Put it that way. Yeah.
Matt, how about you?
I probably will buy it for my love of dinosaurs. I will say that. And especially given Blue and his character arc and what that means for me, since he is a dinosaur, that helps.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like I'm going to rush out the week of. I don't even know if I'll work to get the Blu-ray on this one. I may just buy a DVD and not care. Frankly, the movie has its high moments, but there are, now that I'm thinking about it even more, thanks guys, the movie has a lot of issues and down points, and they really fail at bringing the majesty that I want. And as ridiculous as it sounds, Jurassic Park 2 still had some of that. Mm-hmm. Jurassic Park 3 is an abomination and terrible. This one isn't nearly as bad as that. And I would say even this is better than Jurassic Park 2, but at the same time, you're missing the heart, and the majesty, and it's just, it throws it pretty low for me. And, I was thinking we always do out of 5. So I'm always like 3 out of 5 is above average, and this is not even there. So I'm gonna have to go with probably a 5 out of 10, and it's pushing it for me right now.
Yeah.
And like 3 of those points all by themselves are the fact that there are raptors and they're handled in a way other than just, oh my god, they're all going to kill us. Like, they gave them something else to do, and I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I gave it a 6 out of 10 in my written review, and it's under the marking of buy digitally, so I'll probably end up buying the Blu-ray when it's pretty cheap just to have it in my collection as a completionist, because I have the Ultimate Trilogy Blu-ray set. And it is better than the sequels. I'd put it just a little bit above The Lost World, just because The Lost World I felt was really tried too much to be Ian Malcolm. You can't take the comic character from the first one and make him a leading man. It just disconnected with me. So this movie, it's not going to be that memorable. It's not something that I'm going to watch a lot. It'll just be something I throw on when I'm editing the podcast, probably whenever I eventually buy it. And it's one of the things that really makes Jurassic Park so iconic and so strong is that it captured the imagination of a generation. Really, it set characters, strong science-based characters, scientific characters, into a situation where they use their knowledge and the movie didn't shy away from scientific dialogue and the moral implications of the actual cloning process of these dinosaurs.
Totally.
There's none of that in Jurassic World. There's a little bit of it, but it's coming out of the mouths of characters you don't care about and you don't have any emotional attachment with. So it just falls completely flat, and I think that's part of the reason why there's such a lack of magic in this movie. Even you can show grandiose sequences of the actual park and everything, but it's just set decoration for characters you're just going to watch in peril but not feel like you're in peril with them. And I feel like that's just a massive disservice to Jurassic Park, the Jurassic Park legacy. So I'll probably reluctantly buy it when it's really cheap, or I'll accept it as a gift, but it was really overall pretty disappointing. All right, so after the episode ends, we're going to go into spoilers and check out our spoiler discussion after the outro. But for now, we're going to go into Potpourri. If this is your first time listening, Potpourri is the part of the podcast where we talk about whatever we want as long as it smells good. Anything that we're watching, looking forward to, or anything we want. So to get us kicked off, I think I'll go ahead and get us started, I guess. I've been watching Archer. I think a few episodes ago I may have mentioned it on the podcast. I can't remember exactly, but I've been kind of just mainlining it on Netflix, and I finally got to season 5, which is called Archer Vice. And I think that at some point I'm going to float this idea to Tiny. I want to do an episode that talks about TV shows that reinvent themselves after a certain number of seasons. And Archer Vice is one of them, because Archer is an animated cartoon about about a spy agency, and it's very sarcastic, and the humor is fantastic. It's hilarious. But what Archer did in the 5th season, and I don't know if this is because the organization in Archer is called ISIS, and I don't know if they did this because of the real world ISIS. Or if this predates that. But what they did was they basically got rid of ISIS, and basically the FBI shut them down, and now all the characters in season 5 in Archer Vice, they have like 100,000 kilos of coke, and they're trying to get into the cartel business. And it's such a 180 from everything before it, and it's such an interesting way to reinvent the series, at least for this one season, as far as I know. And like what I thought was really funny and really interesting was that the first episode of the season ends with them deciding, like, okay, well, we have all this coke, what are we gonna do? And then Archer kind of stares at it, and then there's a flash of like scenes from the entire season, and then he's like Archer Vice, and then everyone's like, what? And then he's like, nothing. And then like so the whole season is, you've seen clips of the season, and now you're seeing them all play out, and it's such a refreshing take on a series that in 4 seasons hadn't even lost its luster, because it was still on point and very much an enjoyable show. I'm really enjoying Archer Vice there. That's season 5. It's on Netflix, and they're currently airing or just finished airing season 6, and it'll probably be on Netflix within the next 6 or 7 months probably. So I'll check it out when it goes on there. Tiny, do you want to go next, or should we?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool.
I wanted to talk about Pitch Perfect 2. I went and saw that in the theater with my girlfriend. It was great. It was a lot of fun. I figured it was gonna be a blunder because the first one was so successful and so fun and unique and hilarious. But they managed to hold up fairly well, at least in the comedy department. The second one was so funny. I laughed like crazy. Some of the comedy fell flat though. They brought in some new characters, and the villains of the movie just weren't funny. I really didn't get what their plan was with that. And some of the jokes just kind of went. Some of the comedy and the situational stuff just went a little too far, like the whole thing with Fat Amy and her relationship with Bumper throughout the first one and then into the second one. It's just kind of old. They're harping on the thing like, why would this guy date the fat girl? It's kind of like, it's kind of mean spirited in my opinion, and it's just a little, I don't know, it's just kind of weird. Like there was some good comedy there, but I just thought it was kind of contrived. And then there's a couple of things I had a problem with in it. But it's nothing that made it a bad movie or made it terrible. They really upped the ante, and it kind of took away the self-deprecating realization that what they do is pretty silly and it's not that popular and people make fun of it. But in the second one, it didn't really seem to be there as much. Because I mean, the premise is they compete in an international competition, and so they have like the best team from Germany and the best team from India and China and stuff, and it's like it just lost some of the silliness of that, the lighthearted, tongue-in-cheek characteristics from the first one, and it just took itself a little too seriously in that regard, in my opinion, especially for a comedy like this, a silly comedy. But still, the jokes were just really great. Nice. All of the actresses in that and actors in that are just prime comedians and comedians, just really, really funny people. And it was enjoyable. The music was great, of course, just like the first one. Not quite as good, though. I thought the music was a little better. The performances were a little better in the first movie.
Nice.
But still fun, still worth seeing.
Awesome.
I hope they make a third one.
It's going to happen.
Okay, I figured.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I haven't gotten around to it yet, so yeah, nice. Matt, what do you got for us for Potpourri?
Oh, I'm gonna hit 2 really quick things, and then I'll get into a little bit more just because I like to break rules.
Sure thing.
Band of Brothers is on Amazon Prime, and if you're into World War II at all, or didn't know you were into World War II and now you want to be, it is phenomenal. I am very impressed. David Schwimmer plays a very, very serious character and is very, very good. It's all loosely based on real life events. Totally worth checking out. So that's all on Amazon Prime. That's also an HBO thing, so you can get it on HBO. I just started that. I haven't gotten through it, but I also finished Sopranos, and the ending to that was unique and frustrating in a way that nothing else has ever been frustrating to me before.
Interesting.
But it was still really good. The last season was a little rough.
Yeah.
I don't think that was their best writing, but it was still enjoyable, and it still had lead ups and building and lots. Excuse me. So, those two shows totally worth your time. I just finished the first part of the 7th season of Mad Men, and decided I would go back and start rewatching it. And I'm like mid-season 2 now, and it's not been but a couple of weeks. But it's been so long since I watched the early Mad Men stuff that I've not only reminded by like how terrible people were in the 60s with things like drinking and driving and belting their kids in, but knowing what I know comes later in the show, there is some light building that they do starting early on. There's a lot of good work. January Jones is actually good in this series, unlike anything else I've ever seen her in, where she's flat and terrible.
Yeah.
Overall, I really enjoyed Mad Men as far as it's gone, but the end of the part 1 of the 7th season is, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure what happened to poor Don, and I'm not sure if he's lost it or if he has a tumor or what. But that season, or that closer is just weird, very weird.
Interesting.
So I don't know if you guys are you kept up on Mad Men or anything?
I gave it 3 seasons and then ducked out. I wasn't. I just couldn't get into it.
I gave it like 4 or 5 and just nah.
Fair enough.
Someday I'll go back and watch. Someday I'll go back and watch.
One of the main characters passes away at the end of the part 1 of season 7, and Don, after hearing what happens and a couple other things happen, he goes downstairs at the office and turns around and is greeted by that character, who then sings and dances his way out.
That's weird.
Yeah, it is. You have no idea how weird it is. Because I was like, is he having a stroke? What's going on here?
Huh.
So,
weird.
Yeah.
That's very weird.
And, I don't know. We've been watching a lot of other stuff, though. We're always watching something. So,
right.
It's just that those are the ones I wanted to hit, because those 3 have left a big impact. And those are 2 HBO shows and AMC. So it tells you I watch a lot of your normal everyday comedies.
I noticed something on Amazon Prime. I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but I haven't really dove deep into this yet. I have HBO Go and I have Amazon Prime, and looking at Amazon Prime, I know that HBO Go, HBO has HBO now. Try to follow that. But they have their own standalone thing, and what I noticed on Amazon Prime is they have a like exclusivity deal with HBO content. But what I noticed is that Boardwalk Empire only has the first two seasons available. So I wonder if they're kind of phasing out their HBO catalog.
I think if I had to guess, and I am by no means a genius here, I think Amazon Prime was HBO's way to see if streaming their shows was going to be profitable. Which they should have known ahead of time, but I'm sure some executives somewhere said, how can we make money from this and still test the market? And that was a good way to do it, because by giving it just Amazon Prime, it gives only certain people access, and then you get everything digitized anyway, and it's all ready, and now all they have to do is pull that back, and they have the files ready to release on whatever streaming they're going to do.
True.
Right.
Some of Amazon Prime is great, some of it's not so great, but I was very appreciative of all the HBO stuff there, because it was all stuff that I'd wanted to watch and never got around to.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And some of it I'm still way behind on. I want to watch all of Oz, and I haven't gotten past the first season yet. So,
Oz is
but that
phenomenal.
one's rough. That one's pretty intense. So.
Yeah, you're a little depressed after you watch an episode.
Yeah.
And also, Band of Brothers is one of the best things ever made in the history of things. It's so good. I can't.
Matt, have you watched any of that?
Yeah.
I watch it every year. I mean, it's just the best.
Oh, really?
Thing. The Blu-rays for that are fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, one of the podcasts, we just went into World War II with the role-playing game, and I've been reading The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, which is a phenomenal book.
Nice. That's part of a 3-volume set, isn't it? Or am I thinking of something else?
I think you're thinking of something else. This one specifically is written by a guy who was in Germany during Hitler's rise to power, so he saw a lot of it like firsthand.
Is that written by Albert Speer?
I'm sorry?
Is that written by Speer? I think it's Albert is his first name?
Yes, I think so.
He was Hitler's architect, yeah.
Nerd!
But the way it's written is so approachable and easy to read while still giving you just slews of information. It is a thick, heavy book, and I can only say that because I can see where I'm at on my Kindle. So, but there's a lot there. But I read that, and then I watched Hitler and like the Rise of the Nazis or something, some documentary series on Netflix, which has been really good. And then I was like, well, I should watch Band of Brothers. I hear it's really good. And David Schwimmer, I don't even think I made it all the way through the first episode, but David Schwimmer is so good and not Ross from Friends.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be like that, but I don't have a lot of faith in comedy actors or actresses who have a thing they do for a while and that's the thing they're known for, because oftentimes they get stuck in that and they don't ever break out. And I think David Schwimmer should be given more dramatic roles, and he deserves them just from that. So, I've been very impressed. One of our other hosts is pushing for us to watch 100 other war movies because he's really big into World War II. So I'm sure we'll be watching some of those soon.
Cool.
Nice. Yeah, the trilogy of books I was thinking about is by Richard J. Evans. It's The Coming of the Third Reich, The Third Reich in Power, and The Third Reich at War. Just throwing it out there. But anyway, well, that's great. Was there anything else we needed to discuss, or should we call it a day?
I think we call it a day.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast, Matt. That was great.
No, it was my pleasure. I was happy to return the favor again.
And like we said, we're all going to be at PopCon. What's your booth number again?
546.
Nice. And ours is 637, I think. And I'll be on one of the panels you're going to be on. And do you want to talk about that briefly before we head out?
Yeah, I want to. It's Sunday. I want to say at 11. And
I think that's right.
Podcasting and journalism.
That's right.
Which is a really fanciful way of saying we're going to get up there and talk about podcasting. And we're doing it with my network, Southgate Media Group, and then we're also going to be later doing another panel that will be put on called Professional Geeking, I think, and it's about people that are professionally into their geek, whatever it is. So, for instance, I own Nerdverse LLC, and we hypothetically make money every month. So, I'm a professional geek. So that's the whole idea of that one, is to hear about how people do that. So
cool.
Awesome. Well, we're excited for PopCon, and we're excited for our listeners to come and talk to us and to come check us out and check out Nerds Domain and all of your fine programming.
And you guys are live recording on stage, right?
Yeah, well, we will have. I don't know if they've told us what times we have for the podcaster stage, but we're hoping for Saturday afternoon.
Yeah,
they haven't told anybody yet, but the schedule is up, so you can go and look over at indiepopcon.com.
Oh, nice. Cool.
We're recording like 13 times because we told them we wanted whatever time would work for whatever guest we wanted. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. And Matt, have a good one. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Talk to you later.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks, guys. Sorry, I had a spider incident last night.
I saw your Facebook post.
Yeah.
How big was it?
Dude, oh my god, it was probably like that big.
Holy balls.
Yeah, like it was right up there. It was right up there, tiny.
Oh my god.
And like it was like right when I finished watching Game of Thrones, like I was like tweeting or whatever. And then like the inside the episode thing came on, and like it lit up the room, and I was like, oh fuck. Okay, all right. So like I was like fucking nervous. Like I got my broomstick that I used to kill spiders with, and I wrapped a disinfectant wipe around it. Yeah. And then I sat here for like 10, 15 minutes just waiting, like hoping to like it would disappear or something, so I wouldn't have to deal with it. But it like got in the corner, and like I lunged at it, and like in my head I was saying, "For the watch."
Jesus, you would.
Yeah. Then it fucking fell.
Thank you for listening to The Obsessive Viewer, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find more of our episodes at ovpodcast.com, and you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, or your preferred podcast app. The Obsessive Viewer's theme song is An Eclipse of Events and is provided by Loudlike from their EP Mistakes We Must Make. You can find that and more great music from them on iTunes and like their Facebook page at facebook.com/loudlikemusic. Any and all feedback on the podcast is encouraged. You can email the hosts individually at Matt, Tiny, or Mike at obsessiveviewer.com or send an email to the podcast in general at podcast@obsessiveviewer.com. Check out the Obsessive Viewer blog at obsessiveviewer.com, where we post movie and TV reviews and the occasional editorial about the business of entertainment. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer and follow us on Twitter at obsessiveviewer, at obsessivetiny, and at IamMikeWhite. If you want more obsessive content in your life, check out our sister site, obsessivebooknerd.com, for book reviews, author spotlights, and a general celebration of reading. Finally, if you're philosophically curious, check out Tiny's side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, which explores the concepts of faith, religion, and existence from the perspective of secular hosts. You can find that at thesecularperspective.com and subscribe to the podcast on the podcatcher of your choice. Again, thank you so much for listening. We love you. Be excellent to each other.
So, in the... God. All right, so let's go into spoilers. My nose kept getting stuffed up. So
you guys did mention earlier that one of the characters, or that there were no characters that came from the first movie to this one, and I would have to point out
that's right,
Dr. Wu.
Right, that's true.
BD Wong, I love BD Wong, I really do. But his character turn in this was frustrating, and clearly was setting up a sequel.
I hated that.
Yeah, that was bad.
The pseudoscience he's doing and the things that he shouldn't be doing. Like we went from I'm a scientist, I know genetics, to I'm a mad scientist. Look at what hell I have brought. Like, and then his argument with the Indian guy about, well, this is what you wanted, and well, we put in this and we put in that. Like, who in their right mind goes, it would be really good to cross with a T-Rex is a raptor, a chameleon, and a frog that can jump really high. Like, who said that was a great idea? No one.
Ugh.
Like, oh, well, this frog can change his body temperature. We should totally cross it. No, did you not learn the first time? Like, they made it in the park. This was all a bad idea. Quit using frogs.
Yeah, it was, and that character turn kind of was one of my issues with Vincent D'Onofrio's character, is that he was involved. I think I couldn't even follow what was happening at that point because I had so little invested in it, but it did feel like that shot of BD Wong in the helicopter saying like, that means I'll get a cut or something like that. Like, that was clearly setting up a sequel, and that got under my skin more than almost anything in this movie, because that's not in keeping with the legacy of Jurassic Park. That's just not. There's a scene in Jurassic Park where Newman drops the embryos, and there's an implication that they'll play out later or something like that. But that's it. There's nothing else. That's a self-contained movie.
Yeah.
And another thing that troubled me about Vincent D'Onofrio in the movie as a whole is that there didn't really seem to be any antagonistic characters against that were working nefariously behind the scenes. Like Vincent D'Onofrio was very on the nose, like, well, we want these raptors to be with the military because that's not a stupid idea.
Yeah.
Which that's just ridiculous. That's so ridiculous. Like, it's a movie about cloned dinosaurs in a park, and I was rolling my eyes at that. And it was just so frustrating. So, but like, and people who love, if there are any, well, I assume people love this movie, but if there are people that are supporting this movie that can say like, well, you can't compare it to the original. It's like, okay, yeah, sure, you can't, but they're inviting those comparisons.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest, like, I don't know how I felt about this, but when the kids stumble across like the original like set, I was like, really? Like,
who doesn't tear that down?
Yeah.
Right.
And then there's they find the night vision goggles. It's a nice homage, I guess, or a nice callback, but it's like, okay, are those really going to hold a charge for 22 years?
Yeah.
And then
and they're like, spared no expense except the expense of tearing down the old stuff.
Yeah.
That's too much.
Right?
Seriously?
Yeah.
It was just clearly a ploy to play on the nostalgia of the audience and do that. And there was a lot. There were more kind of toward the end, and we'll get to that discussion here in a second. But there was also the problem with the kids in that scene, and then in another scene later on in the movie. There are like the older kid is like, they're looking at the Jeeps and stuff, and for some reason the kid knows that it's 1992 Jeep, blah blah blah, and I'm like, how the hell do you know that?
Why does that matter?
And why does it matter? Yeah. So then the older kid's like, you remember when we jumped that one guy's car or something like that?
We rebuilt Grandpa's old Malibu.
Yeah, I was like, what? Okay. So do you remember when I was engaged to Jennifer Lawrence and she lived with me? Okay. Like, that's not relevant. I don't know what comparison that was. But anyway, it was...
You just wanted to live in a fantasy world.
I did. But, like, it's like, okay, it was the writers making a choice to just have this kind of, and it happened later, to have one of the kids say something that's completely unconnected that will get them out of this situation. It's so sloppy and so aggravating. And, like, later when... or it might be that same scene.
It's freaking lazy.
Lazy, yes, it is lazy. You were kind of like slow, like the connection was a little bad there. But anyway, it's incredibly lazy. And then there's another scene where the older kid is like it's poorly lit, and he's like, "Hey, do you have those matches from before?" And I'm like, "We never saw any matches. Like the matches, the matches to us just appeared out of nowhere," and it's like that's a Deus Ex Machina on a small scale. And it just it bugged me so much.
I think that was more to like establish. It was reinforcement of the kid as like a little genius or nerd or whatever. That like he's the kind of he earlier in the movie the older brother referred to his dork pouch or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it was reinforcement that he was a genius. It was unnecessary reinforcement, and also the fact that there's this Jeep that's been sitting in a garage for 22 years.
Yeah.
How are they going to get it restarted? It's like, it's exposition and it's not really necessary, but at the same time, I understand why they kind of throw that in there, because otherwise people would see it and be like, well, how did they get that Jeep going? I've just been sitting there for 22 years.
Ugh.
So I don't know. That didn't bother me, but
yeah, I don't know. It got under my skin.
But regarding the whole Vincent D'Onofrio engine thing, I would have been okay with it if they wouldn't have let it drag down the plot so much. Mm-hmm. I think it would have been kind of cool, since they're going to do it anyways. They want to make another sequel. Just make like a little epilogue, like a little, like a stinger scene, like that Marvel's been doing for the past however many years.
Yeah,
that'd be kind of cool to just throw in like an InGen thing at the end. It's like a minute-long clip of InGen showing up to the island and trying to find the embryos and stuff.
God, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and it would establish, that'd be kind of cool. It'd be a fun little thing, I think.
Yeah.
Well, even if you just put it at the end like the Lego movie did. Like, we know that there's a Lego 2 movie coming because they clearly show us that the sequel's coming. And I'm okay with that because they handled it well instead of, like, shoving it into the middle of the movie.
Yeah.
Slowing everything down, making everything worse. I mean, who didn't think for a second that the minute that Chris Pratt gets knocked off that bike that they're driving through the woods in, that the Raptors aren't going to turn on anybody? Like, that's way too much. Like, you have one trainer that can be trusted. Everybody else is going to get eaten.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
No.
The twist that the Indominus Rex was part raptor, I've got to admit, it worked for me.
Yeah, me too.
That actually... Because, like, that moment, like, I felt like they actually set that up well and they paid it off well. Because, I mean, like, they had, like, okay, first of all, I thought it was it was ridiculous when Bryce Dallas Howard was all like, well, it's a T-Rex and, well, that's classified. It's like,
yeah.
Okay, lady. But then, like, there's that scene where Chris Pratt's like, he's the beta, then the kid's like, who's the alpha? And then he's like, Star-Lord is.
He said, "You're looking at him, kid."
Yeah, and so like that moment when the Indominus Rex comes out, like I was like, okay, there's going to be a battle. This is going to be kind of badass. And then when it twists and it turns around, and then he's like, they've got a new alpha. I was like, holy shit, that was actually pretty well done.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah.
And I thought the whole thing, Chris Pratt riding his little Triumph through the woods with his raptor guys like they're going hunting was pretty damn cool.
I thought so too.
I mean, it's pretty silly. I mean,
it is.
I'm not saying visually or concept-wise it wasn't cool. I'm just like, like the whole plan is, hey, there's one guy that can control these things. The rest of us are gonna die.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, plus they were all expendable characters, anyways. Just
they were red
nameless,
shirts.
faceless characters. So
yeah, this show did have a large number of red shirts.
It really did.
There has to be fodder.
And can we talk about the gyroscope thing or gyrosphere?
Gyrosphere.
I thought that was cool. Like the kids in the little sphere thing, the Jimmy Fallon cameo, all that.
Yeah.
But there was something that troubled me, that bothered me so much. Okay, so you have this seemingly indestructible kind of sphere, this ball, this hamster ball that the people are riding in and everything, and it's a park and everything. But you let you're around cloned prehistoric animals that you don't know what they're gonna do or anything, and I think that they were all pretty docile animals. That section of the park is. But you give the people on the ride control of the ball. I felt like that was just like really, like you would let that kind of that variable into the mix when you're dealing with these potentially destructive animals.
Yeah, and it's such a huge area too. It's not even like, oh, you can drive around in this, football field size area. No, you can drive around. We can't see you anymore. Keep going. It's cool.
And it was so contrived once they figured out, like, oh, the nephews are there. It's like, okay, so are you telling me that there's no contingency for one of these hamster balls to get back to it in case of this very emergency? Like, there's no way that the command center control room place can recall the balls? Like, that felt like just so contrived and so just bothersome to me.
Well, and just in general, the whole thing was derivative of the first movie, the Jeep attack in the Tyrannosaurus Rex pen from the first movie, where the kids are being literally a T-Rex biting down on a glass thing, just like in the first movie.
And the only thing it was missing was mud and rain. I mean, honestly,
and a shirtless what's his face?
Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum. Well, God, why did his name just slip my mind? But and a shirtless Ian Malcolm with a flare. I mean,
and that, I lost my train of thought there, but shirtless Ian Malcolm.
That'll do it every time.
He'll do that, yeah.
So in the God. So the climax of the movie, I thought was handled pretty well. Again, like the whole third act of the movie was pretty solid in and of itself, but the second that Bryce Dallas Howard is like telling Jake Johnson to open paddock 9, and he's all like, "What? Are you sure?" or whatever. Like, I was like, what's going on? And then the second that like you realize, like, I was like, wait, she has a flare. This is going to be a callback to Jurassic Park. Holy shit, that's the T-Rex, and he's going to come save the day. And I was invested in that moment, but the characters, again, I was kind of just, I didn't really care about at all. But just that moment, that the decision on the filmmakers to do that just really was one of the few moments of the movie that kind of resonated with me. That and the twist of the raptors being part of his genetic code.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, what did you guys think in the climactic sequence?
It's undeniably cool to have the T-Rex fight the Indominus Rex, and then the raptor shows up and they tag team on him. And it's obviously frustrating when the characters are just, for no apparent reason, are just ridiculously close to the action. Like run. Effing run, you morons. Yeah. Why are you sitting there crouching? I mean, I realize you want to see it, but you can see it safely from a distance.
Right.
And it's just like, I know it's for dramatic effect and all that stuff, but still it's just frustrating because it's so nonsensical. But despite that, really cool. I mean, the whole, the dinosaur popping up out of the water to grab the Indominus Rex and drag it down was pretty predictable, but at the same time, undeniably cool.
Yeah.
Matt,
you know, when the pterodactyls and the pterodons came out of the aviary and they started attacking people, again, this sounds terrible, but the only murder that I felt bad about was when one of the pterodactyls picked up one of the little triceratopses and banged him on the ground and dropped him.
Oh yeah.
Like, no, he didn't even do anything.
I don't know.
Like everybody else, I'm like, oh, that guy's doing on fire. Oh, yep, he did. Oh, this chick's getting picked up. Oh, she got dropped. I bet they're going to get eaten by the water guy. He's going to fly over and snap them both. Oh, there he goes. I felt no remorse for the faceless humans.
Yeah.
But you know, the dinos die, and they at least made me feel bad for that. But I don't know that. So many bad things.
Yeah, when Bryce Dallas,
how they presented the stuff.
Oh yeah, when Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt found the dying Brontosaurus or whatever it was, and they noticed like he's killing for sport. The Indominus is killing for sport. I was like that scene like made me feel like, oh, that's sad and all that.
Yeah.
And the rest is like, oh, dino fodder.
Yeah.
And when the assistant got taken by the pterodactyls and eaten by the big sea monster thing, I was all like, she kind of had that coming.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, your boss has you in charge of watching her two nephews, and you're on your phone and you ignore them completely. Like, okay, I'm not gonna okay.
Kind of like the lawyer in the first movie.
Yeah, and that was one of the. Go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
No, well, and then you lose them and don't let your boss know.
Yeah.
Hours later.
Exactly. And like the lawyer in the first one, like all the deaths in the first one kind of had like an impact or kind of like, okay, Newman from Seinfeld, he was doing shady stuff. He caused the entire problem, all the problems and everything. And like his death is it's not like oh, it's very satisfying to see this guy die, but it's like, okay, there's a connection with the movie where in the original movie, like bad kind of bad people. I mean, there are a couple that aren't, you know, bad, like the hunter guy and all that. But you kind of get a respect for the dinosaurs in that, like, the lawyer gets killed because he leaves the kids, like, and it's like, okay, well, he got, you know, that was kind of coming to him. And then in this movie, it's like people are dying left and right, and it's like there's no like connection, or there's no like unspoken like morals or subtext to it or anything. It's just flair and movie blockbuster stuff. So
yeah.
And then there was another. Oh, what did you guys think in the control room people? I really like Jake Johnson as an actor, and the guy in the control room, and I kind of liked his back and forth with the other people in the control room and everything. There's really not much else to touch on that, but what do you guys think?
They could have had a little more Jake Johnson, I think. Again, kind of let him off the leash a little bit and let him be a little funnier than the character may have called for in the script, but it was fine. I thought it was fun.
So I don't know. I don't know if there's really anything else that we need to say about Jurassic World. I think we kind of covered it all. They're gonna make sequels. It was a mega hit, so we'll see. But
yeah,
I don't know. It was pretty disappointing, I think. Although the third act was pretty on point and fantastic to me.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, that'll be at the end of this. Then it fell on the carpet, started scurrying like toward my bedroom. I was like, no, I sleep there. And like I stabbed it against the wall a little bit, and then it died. And then I was such a pussy about picking it up and stuff. I took out the vacuum cleaner and vacuumed it up. So And like when I was actually going for the kill shot,
Gotcha.
I actually said, like, I yelled, "Fucking die, fucking die!" So at about 11:30, 11:45 at night on a Sunday in my apartment, I screamed, "Fucking die, fucking die," and then ran the vacuum cleaner.
Wow.
So my neighbors love me.